Good evening. If you could take your seats, please. We're about ready to start. The town clerk has informed me that we have a quorum. Before we get started, I would just like to welcome you all here tonight as we come together once again in true traditional democracy to make decisions about our community and deliberate and advocate for our positions. You know, there are town moderators across the state this year who are reviewing the tradition of self-governance practice for over 400 years. And by gathering today, we honor and embrace the town meetings of 250 years ago. And as we go through the history of our nation over the past 250 years, we think about the conduct of town meetings that colonial American public embraced, which in turn sparked a revolt and fueled a revolution. The voices then raised, the actions taken, financial support committed, the lives and liberties pledged at many town meetings in the Commonwealth. They remain our worthy heritage. So we are honored to be here tonight. I thank you all for participating with us here. Just let us remember that our neighbors with whom we may disagree are good people with opinions as strong as ours. So let us remember that in the end, respect and care for each other in this community is of far greater importance than any differences we may have. I'd like to go just through some introductions. We have the three tables here: school committee to the far left, the FinCom in the center, the Board of Selectmen to my left. For IT tonight, we have Greg Robert. To my right, we have the town administrator, Rick LaFawn, town council, Jeff Blake, and our town clerk, Linda Krowski. My name is Ted Avalos, and I will be your moderator for tonight's town meeting. In addressing town meetings, I just remind you that we have a microphone here in the center aisle to speak. The proper procedure is to approach the microphone when you wish to address, and you address the moderator as Mr. Moderator, who will then recognize you. Please respond with your full name and residential address before speaking. All questions and statements are to be addressed to the moderator, and the moderator will then request a response from an appropriate party. Each committee, there's a committee microphone there to be used by the chairman of each committee for comments and questions. The chair may designate a member of their committee or board to speak when appropriate. Committee members, though wishing to speak as individuals, should use the microphones in the center aisle assigned for residents. The moderator will present each article. Please don't make any motions to dispense with the reading, as the moderator will summarize as needed, and this will allow all our residents to understand the full effect of the article before article being presented. Once an article has been read, the moderator will call for a motion. It is customary for the sponsor of the article to make the motion. Upon the motion, a second must be made to allow any discussion or vote. Anyone may second a motion in the audience by simply stating second. Once a motion has been seconded, the moderator will open the article up for discussion. The sponsor of the article will be the first to speak. Once they are finished, the moderator will ask for any further discussion. This is your opportunity to speak on the article being presented. Again, voters seeking to be recognized should line up here before the microphone. Again, I ask, before making a comment or asking a question, formally address the moderator, state his or her name and address for the record, and wait for the moderator to tell you to proceed. Time for discussion will be at the discretion of the moderator. Please limit your questions or comments to the article being presented. It is my intention to let everyone who wishes to speak do so. But if the moderator feels questions or comments are simply repetitive or not relative to the article, then conversation will be halted. Once discussion has been completed, the moderator will call for a vote. The system for voting will be by electronic device. All registered voters received a device when they entered the room. When asked to vote, please do so by entering 1A for a yes vote or 2B for a no vote. If you make a mistake voting, you may re-enter a vote by pressing the appropriate number. You can press those buttons all you want, but your device is only going to record the last choice you made when voting was closed. We have a sample questionnaire to see how our devices are working here tonight. Mrs. Robert has posted a question for the town residents to respond to. I know we have a big game here tonight. It's the moderator's role to get us in and out of here in time for the big game. But the question we have before you is, will the Celtics win Game 4 versus the Knicks? Please press 1A for yes or 2B for no. And then I will disclose at the time. I'll usually give you enough time to vote. Time for voting having expired, the vote is 61-9 in favor. I hope we have a very intelligent audience here tonight. So we're about ready to begin. I know we have a special meeting at 6:30. I just want to give you how we're going to work it out because we have an annual town meeting at 7. So at 7 o'clock, I will call for a motion to adjourn the special town meeting. We will then open the annual town meeting. At that point, we will then adjourn the annual town meeting to begin following the special, and then we will reopen the special and complete it. So that will be the procedure between the special and the annual town meeting. So we're ready to begin, it being after 6:30 on this day, May 12, 2025, and a quorum being present. I call the annual town meeting to order. Before actually doing our Pledge of Allegiance, I have one special announcement that I would like to make and recognize. We have a gentleman here tonight who's been a long-time, full-time, lifetime resident and has served our community very well. Mr. Brian Hickey is retiring. This is going to be his last town meeting as our fire chief. 40 years plus on the Webster Fire Department and the 15 years as fire chief. I think we should recognize Brian for his accomplishment. Thank you, Brian. You remain standing. Brian, if you wouldn't mind leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I have a couple of moderator motions that I would like to start with here tonight. Find them. Number one, the moderator moves the town to vote to dispense with the reading of the warrant. And 2, the moderator moves that the moderator may extend the floor to town management, staff, and other non-voters, provided that they must be recognized by the moderator. I entertain a motion to accept. Do I have a second? Second. All those in favor can simply say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It's a vote. Thank you very much. We'll move to Article 1. General Fund prior year bills. To see if the town will vote to appropriate and transfer from any available funds in the treasury a sum sufficient to the town administrator unpaid bills account for the purpose of funding the payment of prior year's unpaid balances or taking any action thereon. This Article 1 is sponsored by the Board of Selectmen, and the Board of Selectmen and FinCom have recommended favorable action on this article.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to transfer from the authorizations listed in the town meeting guide totaling $2,910.56, the town administrator unpaid bill account for the purpose of funding the payment of prior year's unpaid invoices.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Town Administrator.
This is an annual article, and as you can see from the explanation, these are generally bills that came in after June 30th, the end of the fiscal year, and therefore cannot be paid until authorized by town meeting.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions or comments? If not, we're prepared to put the Article 1 to a vote. All those in favor, 1A. All those opposed, 2B. Voting is now open. Time for voting having expired, we'll post the results. 119 yes, 4 no. The motion for Article 1 passes. Article 2, see if the town will vote to appropriate and transfer from any available funds in the treasury a sum sufficient to the sewer unpaid bills account for the purpose of funding the payment of prior year's unpaid invoices or take any action thereon. Article 2 is sponsored by the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee have recommended favorable action on this article.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to transfer from the authorizations listed below $10,502.29 to the sewer fund unpaid balance account for the purpose of funding the payment of prior year's unpaid invoices.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Town Administrator.
Same explanation as the prior.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, we're ready to put Article 2 to a vote. All those in favor, 1A. All those opposed, 2B. Voting is now open. Time for voting having expired, we'll now post the results. 125 yes, 5 no. Article 2 passes. Article 3, see if the town will vote to appropriate and transfer from any available funds in the treasury a sum sufficient to the water unpaid bills account for the purpose of funding the payment of prior year's unpaid invoices or take any action thereon. Article 3, sponsored by the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee recommend to pass over this article.
Make a motion, Mr. Moderator, to pass over this article.
Motion and a second to pass over. Any discussion? Hearing none, we're ready to put Article 3 to a vote. All those in favor of 1A, all those opposed, 2B. Time for voting having expired, we will now post the results. (111) yes, 18 no. Article 3 passes. Article 4, see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and transfer from any available funds in the treasury a sum sufficient to the DPW snow and ice supplies accounts or take any other action thereon. Article 4 is sponsored by the town administrator. The Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee recommend favorable action on this article.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to transfer from free cash in the amount of $250,000 for funding anticipated FY25 snow and ice deficit accounts.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Town Administrator.
Mr. Moderator, the snow and ice line item is the only item in general accounts that can be overspent. And of course, the reason is we never know what kind of weather we're going to have, so we tend to budget that low.
and then balance that budget at the end of the year, once we have a much better idea as to what it actually costs. So this $250,000 is what is anticipated to complete the current fiscal year.
Thank you. Do you have any other discussion on Article 4? Hearing none, we're ready to put Article 4 to a vote. All those in favor? 1A. All those opposed? 2B. Voting is now open. Time for voting having expired, we'll post the results. 124 yes, 10 no. The motion to pass Article 4 passes. Article 5, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and transfer from any available funds in the treasury a sum sufficient to the special education transportation accounts or take any action thereon. Article 5 is sponsored by the school superintendent. The Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee have recommended favorable action on this article.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to transfer from free cash the amount of $400,000 for the purposes of this article.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we're ready to put Article 5 to a vote. All those in favor, 1A. All those opposed, 2B. Voting is now open. Time for voting having expired, we'll post the results. 107 yes, 22 no. Article 5 passes. Article 6, to see if the town will vote to appropriate and transfer from available funds in the treasury a sum sufficient to the general liability and insurance fund for the purpose of paying FY 2025 deficit or take any other action relative thereto. Article 6 is sponsored by the town administrator. The Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee have recommended favorable action on this article.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to transfer from free cash the amount of $70,260 to fund the FY 25 deficit on the general liability insurance account.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Town Administrator.
Yes, basically the budget is insufficient at the beginning of the year. We don't know exactly what our workers' compensation amounts are going to be, as well as our general liability insurance, so we simply make projections. A couple of the particular items this year is after our annual workers' comp audit. Our payroll was underestimated to some extent, and the increased value of the Bartlett High School and other capital stock in town has increased, and therefore our budget needs to increase accordingly.
Thank you. Any other discussion on Article 6? Hearing none, we're ready to put the article to a vote. All those in favor, 1A. All those opposed, 2B. Voting is now open. Time for voting having expired, we'll now post the results. 113 yes, 16 no. Article 6 passes. Article 7, to see if the town will vote to appropriate and transfer from free cash the amount of $550,000 to the town stabilization fund or take any other action relative thereto. Article 7 is sponsored by the town administrator. The Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee recommend favorable action on this article.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town transfer from free cash $550,000 to the stabilization fund.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion.
Last year, you may recall at the end of the fiscal year, the town did require more funding to balance our budget for special education transportation, which is, as you can see from a prior article, it's a huge problem, not just here but statewide. However, this year, our proposal here is to actually replenish the amount we took from stabilization last year to put it back in the town savings account.
Thank you. Do we have any other discussion on Article 7? Hearing none, we're ready to put the article to a vote. All those in favor of 1A, opposed 2B. Voting is now open. Time for voting having expired, we'll post the results. 120 yes, 18 no. Article 7 passes. Article 8, to see if the town will vote to appropriate and transfer from free cash a sum sufficient for the purpose of funding capital purchases and projects as listed in the table in your handout, including all costs, incidental and related thereto, or take any other action thereon. And in the table, you have a list of departments, which each specific project and the amounts as well. Article 8 is sponsored by the town administrator and the school superintendent, and the board of selectmen and the finance committee have recommended approval.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to transfer from free cash $968,000 for the purposes of this article.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion.
Mr. Moderator, I think, well, I'm sure everybody can see that there's a list of explanations for each one of these items. I will compliment our department heads for doing a very good job of making these concise but on topic. And so I would suggest that perhaps if we can take any questions, if there are any, although I do think the explanations are pretty darn good and may actually reduce the need for people to ask questions.
Mr. Moderator,
Yes.
that's retained earnings, not free cash.
This is the general.
That's the next article.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Thank you. Any other discussion on any of the items in the chart? Hearing none, we're ready to put Article 8 to a vote. All those in favor, 1A. All those opposed, 2B. Voting is now open. Time for voting now expired. We will post the results. 104 yes, 25 no. Article 8 passes. To see if the, Article 9, to see if the town will vote to appropriate and transfer from sewer retained earnings a sum sufficient for the purpose of funding capital purchases and projects as listed in the table below, including all costs incidental and related thereto, or take any other action thereon. And in your handout, you have a list in the article of 4 projects and the amounts for each one. Article 9 is sponsored by the Water Sewer Commission and the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen and the FinCom recommend favorable action on this article.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to transfer $74,500 from sewer retained earnings for the purposes of this article.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. Okay, hearing none, we're ready to move on Article 9. All those in favor, 1A. All those opposed, 2B. Voting is now open. Time for voting having expired, we will now post the results. 122 yes, 12 no. Article 9 is approved. Article 10, to see if the town will vote to appropriate transfer from water retained earnings a sum sufficient for the purpose of funding capital purchases and projects as listed in the table below, including all costs incidental and related thereto, or take any other action thereon. And in the article, you will see in your handout 1 project with an amount. Article 10 is sponsored by the Water Sewer Commission and the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee have recommended favorable action on this article.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to transfer $250,000 from water retained earnings for the purposes of this article.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion.
I would defer to any questions that may come from the floor. I would defer to our water and sewer superintendent.
Hearing no other discussion, we're ready to vote on Article 10. All those in favor 1A, opposed 2B. Voting is now open. Time for voting having expired, we will post the results. 118 yes, 20 no. Article 10 is approved. Article 11, to see if the town will vote to appropriate $5,200,000 for the purpose of the wastewater treatment plant aeration system Phase 2 project and all related costs, and that to meet said appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the Board of Selectmen, be authorized to borrow said sum under NGL Chapter 44, Section 7 and 8, Chapter 29C, and/or any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds and notes therefore, or to take any action thereon. Article 11, sponsored by the Water and Sewer Commission. The Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee have recommended favorable action on this article.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town appropriate $5,200,000 for the purpose of the wastewater treatment plant aeration system Phase 2 project and all related costs. That to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the Board of Selectmen, is authorized to borrow said sum under MGL Chapter 44, Sections 7 or 8, or any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds and notes therefore. That the Board of Selectmen is authorized to contract for and expend any federal or state aid available for the project, and that the Board of Selectmen, the Water Commissioners, and the Water and Sewer Superintendent are each authorized to take any other action necessary or convenient to carry out this project.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion.
Again, the explanation is excellent, so I would, any questions from the floor, I would defer to the Water and Sewer Superintendent.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, before we vote, I'll just remind you that because this is a borrowing article, it requires 2/3 vote for passage. We're all ready to vote. All those in favor 1A, all those opposed 2B. Voting is now open. Time for voting having expired, we'll now post the results. 82% yes, 107 to 23. Article 11 passes. Okay, now being 7 o'clock, and I will now ask for a motion to adjourn the special town meeting to resume immediately following adjournment of the annual town meeting. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It's a vote. We will now open the annual town meeting. It being 7 o'clock, and there being a quorum, I open the annual town meeting. Moderator motions to begin. Number 1, a moderator moves that the town votes to dispense with the reading of the warrant. And 2, moderator moves that the moderator may extend the floor to town management and staff and other non-voters, provided that they must be recognized by the moderator. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Moderator motions pass. At this time, I would ask that we take a motion to adjourn the annual, resume the special, and resume the annual following the end of the special town meeting. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? There's a motion to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It's a vote. We are now back on the special. Welcome back. And we are on 12, I believe, correct? To see if the town will vote to accept Mass General Law, Chapter 200A, Section 9A. I will tell you that there is a typo, but it should be Section 9A, or take any other action relative thereto. Article is sponsored by the town administrator. The Board of Selectmen and the FinCom recommend favorable action on this article.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to accept Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 200A, Section 9A.
Motion and a second. Discussion.
Mr. Moderator, briefly, as you can see from your explanation here, right now, any unclaimed property the town has, for instance, as the finance director has pointed out, any uncashed checks, as an example, any type of property that is, that the town has in its possession, ultimately becomes property of the state unless towns accept the statute. This would allow unclaimed property, uncashed checks, etc., to become property of the town rather than property of the state.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the article? If not, ready to put Article 12 to a vote. All those in favor, 1A. All those opposed, 2B. Voting is now open. The time for voting having expired, we will now post the results. 126 yes, 12 no. Article 12 is approved. Article 13, to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen of the Town of Webster to pursue a special legislative act to amend the Webster Town Charter by eliminating Article 3, Section 5, providing for the election of the town clerk, or take any other action relative thereto. Article 13 is sponsored by the town administrator. The Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee have recommended favorable action on this article.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to approve the article as presented.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion.
Mr. Moderator, I think the background speaks very well to the rationale. I think just briefly, I think you can see from my explanation that this is minimizing the amount of elected positions that are professional jobs. Is something recommended by the Department of Revenue. It is not a policy-making job. A town clerk's job is a professional management level job. Right now, I think everybody knows Linda Krupski has spent many, many years as an assistant town clerk before assuming the position of town clerk. The system of elected town clerks does not in any way provide for that type of continuity. It was very fortunate in this particular case, but looking forward, you have a position that is increasingly technical, increasingly needs to have a handle on many laws, open meeting laws, public records laws. It's again, an increasingly professional job, and if you don't have the background, this is not a learn-on-the-job type of position. I would suggest that there's no town department head position at all that is learn on the job. Usually there's a rank structure or recruitment process. Having this position elected doesn't provide for that, and in my opinion, does not provide for the best service to the town. And as I mentioned, right now, there is no Linda waiting in the wings. At some point in the future, when Linda decides she doesn't want to hold this job anymore. It may be a long, long time. It certainly makes my job easier if it is. So I think we need to provide for continuity, that this is a professional job for well into the future. So answer any questions anybody has, but again, I think the explanation was pretty good. But like I said, what I didn't really mention in here and hit hard enough is the transition. At least if Linda were to leave tomorrow, we'd be in very, very tough shape because we don't have any professional person that knows how to do this job.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Yes.
Maggie Bernardo, 6 Longview Avenue. It's more of a point than anything, and to provide some background, I'm the daughter of a 35-year master municipal clerk from a different town. I moved out here a couple years ago, and it is my opinion, after watching my mother be a town clerk for many years and go through all the trainings, that it is a position that should stay elected. It is the face of the town for the most part. A lot of people go to the town clerk first to find out things, even if they're not necessarily the right person. And it's my opinion that who better to direct those people than a town resident? And something that an appointed position does not guarantee is that it's a town resident taking over our vital records and being the face of the town hall. And very much the clerk is the face of the town hall. The majority of towns and cities within Massachusetts still have elected positions, and it runs well. And you never know who's waiting in the wings to come up. Maybe when she's done, I'll run. You know, something like that. You just never know. And I just very, very much feel that it's an important position to the town, that the residents of the town should have a voice in the decision of who is their town clerk. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, we're ready to put Article 13 to a vote. All those in favor of Article 13, 1A, all those opposed, 2B. Voting is now open. Time for voting having expired, we will now post the results. 64 yes, 74 no. Article 13 does not pass. Article 14. To see if the town will vote to eliminate Section 14-1 of the general bylaws, thereby eliminating the bylaw committee, or take any other action relative thereto. Article 14 is sponsored by the town administrator. The Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee have recommended favorable action on this article.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to approve the article as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second discussion.
Mr. Moderator, you can see by my explanation, we really have a committee here that's essentially defunct. Its role is somewhat antiquated. We don't have any people on this committee. And again, it's a layer of government that's really beyond its time. There's many, many opportunities, checks and balances within the system to make sure that anything that comes to town meeting has been properly vetted. It would be the selectmen, the finance committee, the planning board, our professional staff, and the town council. So again, it's a committee whose time has come.
Any other discussion? If not, we're ready to put Article 14 to a vote. All those in favor, 1A. All those opposed, 2B. Voting is now open. Time for voting having expired, we will now post the results. 112 yes, 29 no. Article 14 passes. Article 15. To see if the town will vote to appropriate from the following surplus fund balances in the amount of $168,820.56. And in the article and in your handout, you'll see a chart with the 5 recommended accounts. To fund renovations at the town hall from the Town Hall Capital Improvements Fund, Fund 50/50, including all costs and related thereto, or take any action thereon. Article 14 is sponsored by the town administrator. The Board of Selectmen have recommended favorable action on this article.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to approve this article as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion.
As of this time, we don't have any accounts really to draw on in terms of dealing with any type of town hall, I don't want to say projects, but emergency or other types of issues, whether it's heating or whatever the case may be. we don't have a budget for window washing, et cetera. So to be able to put a little bit of money aside, these are funds that are not being used, that would otherwise be closed out to free cash. So recommending that we put it in an account that we can actually use it for town hall maintenance.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Yeah.
Susan Beginning, 9 Pinewood Drive. If I'm understanding this right, the items listed below for this Article 15. I'm curious why the police vehicle and boat documents are, I assume, are for the fire, the code, and the emergency codes, like, why those don't come under those budgets?
Those were voted as separate articles at the time they were appropriated. I don't know how many years ago, but those amounts were the amounts that were not used. For instance, there was an article to fund boat docks. Those have been dealt with. This is funds that are left over from that project.
Yes.
Caitlin Warren, 55 Base Point Road, Webster, Mass. I was wondering if at this time I could make a motion to reconsider a previous article as this next article will be in the special town meeting.
I would probably ask that you wait until this article is voted on.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion on Article 15? Hearing none, we're ready to put it to a vote. All those in favor, 1A. All those opposed, 2B. Voting is now open. Time for voting having expired, we'll post the results. 120 yes, 23 no. The motion to pass Article 15 passes. Name and address, please.
Caitlin Warren, 55 Base Point Road. I move to reconsider Article 13 based on Massachusetts conflict of interest law.
Do you have is there a second on that motion? We have a motion and a second. Discussion. Yes.
Megan Bernard, 6 Longview Avenue. I'd like an explanation on what conflict of interest is believed to have been violated.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion?
Caitlin Warren, 55 Base Point Road. So the conflict of interest law regards how city and town clerks are municipal employees. And especially, it really hopes to ensure that private financial interests and relationships do not conflict with your abilities and responsibility as a clerk. And I think that it's really hard to run an election if you are on the ballot.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Moderator.
Go ahead.
Megan Bernard, 6 Longview Avenue. In the case where a town clerk would be on the ballot, they would then defer to their assistant town clerk to become the warden of elections, as the assistant town clerk is the deputy warden of elections. So they are more than capable to take over running the election in the place of the town clerk when the town clerk is running for election. Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion? I'm going to just call a brief recess to confer with town council. Okay, if I call the meeting back to order, it is my determination that the motion to reconsider does not meet the requirements for reconsideration, and so it is not accepted. We have a motion to dissolve, do we have a second? Do a voice vote, all those in favor of adjourning? Say aye. Opposed, no. It's a vote. The special town meeting is adjourned. Now we're ready to move on to the annual. I will call the annual meeting back to order. Article 1, to hear and act upon the report and recommendations of the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee or take any other action thereon. Article 1, sponsored by the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen and FinCom recommend favorable action on this article.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to approve the Finance Committee report.
A motion and a second. Discussion? Hearing none, we're ready to move Article 1. All those in favor of 1A, all those opposed 2B. Voting is now open. Time for voting having expired, we'll now post the results. 120 yes, 7 no. Article 1 is approved. Article 2, to see if the town will vote pursuant to the provisions of General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53E and a half, as most recently amended, to set FY 2026 spending limits for such revolving funds as follows. And you have a list of 7 revolving funds and their FY 26 spending limits, or take any action thereon. Article 2 is sponsored by the town administrator. The Board of Selectmen and the FinCom recommend favorable action on this article.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to approve the article as presented.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Hearing none, we will now put Article 2 to a vote. All those in favor 1A, opposed 2B. Voting is now open. Time for voting having expired, we will post the results. 118 yes, 12 no. Article 2 is approved. Article 3, to see if the town will vote to fix the compensation of elected officials, provide for a reserve fund, and determine what sum of money the town will raise and appropriate, including appropriations from any available funds, to defray the charges and expenses of the town, including debt and interest, for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2025, and ending June 30th, 2026, or take any other action thereon. Article 3 is sponsored by the Board of Selectmen. The Board and the FinCom recommend favorable action on this article.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate an omnibus budget in a sum of $64,791,959, an amount sufficient to fix the compensation of elected officials, provide for a reserve fund, and to defray the charges and expenses of the town, including debt and interest for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2025, and ending June 30, 2026, said sums to be raised as printed below.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion.
Mr. Moderator, for those who aren't necessarily regulars, this is basically the budget article. And I have a very, very long presentation. However, this budget was discussed with the Selectmen in public session, the Finance Committee. It's been online for quite some time now. And quite frankly, I'd rather just take any questions we might have. But I will say that this was a long process, and the financial team, including the school superintendent, business manager, spent a tremendous amount of time, and it's safe to say that we are in unison, we are united on presenting this spending plan for the town. Yeah, no, as town council pointed out, it is part of the handout also.
Right. Any other discussion? We're ready to vote on Article 3. All those in favor, 1A, all those opposed, 2B. Voting is now open. Time for voting having expired, we will now post the results. 118 yes, 26 no. Article 3 is approved. Article 4, see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate transfer from any available funds a sum sufficient to operate the sewer enterprise fund for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2025 and ending June 30, 2026, or take any other action thereon. Article 4 is sponsored by the Water Sewer Commission and the Board of Selectmen. The Board and the FinCom have recommended favorable action on this article.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to appropriate an omnibus budget in the sum of $4,822,180, an amount sufficient to operate the sewer enterprise fund for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2025 and ending June 30, 2026, and that $4,822,180 be raised as follows: $250,000 from retained earnings and $4,572,180 from department receipts.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion.
Mr. Moderator, just like the last one, this is the sewer department annual budget.
Do we have any other discussion? Hearing none, we're ready to put Article 4 to a vote. All those in favor, 1A, opposed, 2B. Voting is now open. Time for voting having expired, we'll post the results. 116 yes, 18 no. Article 4 is approved. Article 5, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate transfer from any available funds a sum sufficient to operate the Water Enterprise Fund for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2025 and ending June 30th, 2026, or take any other action thereon. Article 5 is sponsored by the Water Sewer Commission and the Board of Selectmen. The Selectmen and the FinCom have recommended favorable action on this article.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to appropriate an omnibus budget in the sum of $3,835,900, an amount sufficient to operate the Water Enterprise Fund for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2025 and ending June 30, 2026, and that $3,835,900 be raised as follows: $250,000 from retained earnings, $3,585,900 from department receipts.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. Hearing none, we'll now put Article 5 to a vote. All those in favor, 1A, opposed, 2B. Voting is now open. Time for voting having expired, we'll post the results. 115 yes, 11 no. Article 5 is approved. Article 6, to see if the town will vote to authorize the treasurer, with the consent of the Board of Selectmen, to temporarily borrow a note or notes, or make an inter-fund advance from available funds in anticipation of revenue from taxation, bonds, or grants, and to repay said sums within the current fiscal cycle, or take any other action thereon. Article 6 is sponsored by the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee recommend favorable action on this article.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to authorize the treasurer with the consent of the Board of Selectmen to temporarily borrow a note or notes or make an inter-fund advance from available funds in anticipation of revenue from taxation, bonds, or grants, and to repay said sums within the current fiscal year or take any action on it.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we're ready to put Article 6 to a vote. All those in favor, 1A. All those opposed, 2B. Voting is now open. Time for voting having expired, we'll post the results. 119 yes, 18 no. Article 6 is approved. Article 7, to see if the town will vote to appropriate from cable tech access account the following cable access budget in accordance with General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53F and 3/4, or take any other action thereon. And in the article, you will see a list of accounts and account numbers and amounts. Article 7 is sponsored by the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee recommend favorable action on this article.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to approve the article as presented.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Hearing none, ready to put Article 7 to a vote. All those in favor, 1A. Opposed, 2B. Voting is now open. Time for voting having expired, we'll post the results. 108 yes, 29 no. Article 7 is approved. Article 8, to see if the town will vote to amend the Town of Webster bylaws, Chapter 334, buildings numbering of, by deleting the existing Section 334-2, request for building numbers, and replacing it as follows. The selectmen shall review and approve a policy developed by the assessor and the 911 municipal liaison that ensures consistent building number practices are utilized. The policy shall take into account best practices for street numbering for emergency response purposes, along with any ensuring any compliance that is required as part of the Commonwealth's statewide 911 system. The assessor shall be responsible for issuing building numbers in compliance with the approved policy, or take any other action thereon. Article 8 is sponsored by the town administrator. The Board of Selectmen and the FinCom have recommended favorable action on this article.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to approve the article as presented.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. As town moderator regarding this article, I will just inform the residents that this would have recommended a bylaw committee approval, but as the town does not currently have a bylaw committee, hence the previous vote to eliminate it, I have allowed this article to move forward. Any other discussion? If not, we're ready to put Article 8 to a vote. All those in favor, 1A, opposed, 2B. Voting is now open. Time for voting having expired, we will now post the results. 129 yes, 9 no. The article is approved. Article 9, to see if the town will vote to transfer the sum of $25,000 from free cash for the purpose of funding Webster Lake maintenance or take any other action relative thereto. Article 9 is sponsored by the town administrator. The Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee have recommended favorable action on this article.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to approve the article as presented in the warrant.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion.
Mr. Moderator, I don't know if you got a chance to read the background, but I think it's very good. I would ask that the speaking to this article. As the sponsor, I would ask that perhaps you let Mr. Wilson make a few comments.
If you could just state your name, sir.
Mr. Moderator, Robert Wilson, 33 Wawila Park Road, Webster.
It is my understanding that Mr. Wilson is not a town voter. However, he is a property owner, and so I am allowing him to speak on this article.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I wanted to start off by thanking the town administrator, the selectmen, finance committee, and the other boards for supporting the Webster Lake and Webster Lake Association. Just as a little background to myself, I've spent every single summer of my entire life on the lake. My dad grew up in Webster, graduated from Bartlett High School. My grandfather owned a shop on West Main Street. So I feel like, although I'm not a registered voter, I certainly feel close, very close ties to the town. We've established, the Webster Lake Association has established a partnership with the town and the state, working together to hopefully provide permanent and sustainable funding for Webster Lake management. Last year, we received 2 grants from the state totaling $75,000 for the purpose of conducting a lake management study that will study water quality and sources of contamination. That study started this February and is continuing and will continue for the next few months. Last year, we also received $20,000 from the town as part of the annual meeting. We're asking for $25,000 this year. The lake, as you may or may not know, has an ongoing and continuing problem with invasive weeds, algae, outside contamination from highways and streets, and from runoff from lawns. And the Webster Lake Association has been paying the entire cost of lake management and invasive weed treatment for many years, along with water testing for many years. And the Lake Association really can no longer afford to be the sole payer of this. Webster Lake, as you all know, is a huge economic driver for the town. It's a shared asset, the Massachusetts Great Pond, and, at least I believe, the crown jewel of Webster. A clean lake supports a large and growing tax base and economic activity for the town. Think about all of the community benefits, but also all of the spending, all of the economic activity that accrue to many Webster businesses, the tax revenue that's generated, and the jobs that are generated from all of the lake activities. A short example, lakefront real estate is a major component of the tax base and the tax revenue for the town. In 2024, there were 844 residential properties, lakefront residential properties, approximately 20% of all of the residential units in town. Those lakefront properties have an assessed value in 2024, $824 million. And they pay property taxes in the amount of $6,591,000 that year. So, 22% of all the residential units in the town paid 34% of all the residential taxes in the town. This doesn't include the jobs generated, the business activities generated, the commercial taxes generated, or the employment generated. And a final note, many academic research studies investigating real estate values and lake water quality come to the same conclusion. They show a strong correlation between poor and deteriorating lake water quality and loss in real estate value and assessed value. And they show that good and improving lake water quality correlates with increases in real estate value. It's easy to understand. If the lake water quality deteriorates, the economic benefits of Webster tax base are at risk. So I ask you to support this warrant article. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
Mr. Moderator.
Yes.
Mike Taco, 1402 Treasure Island Road. I'm standing before you to support this article, and I'd like to give a little different take. Bob had a lot of great facts there. I'm on several boards, associations, and committees in town, but I stand before you as a property owner, a taxpayer, and an avid user of the lake. And I get asked questions about funding for the lake because I'm out and about quite frequently. And I wanted to just talk about 2 questions I get asked a lot that some people here might be thinking of. The first one is, I don't live on the lake, or I don't use the lake. To which I replied, do you live in town? And of course, the answer is yes. And I said, the quality of the lake directly affects the usage of that lake. And like Bob said, the taxes and fees collected from people that use the lake, live on the lake, and frequent the businesses around that lake support all 3 of those groups, including people that may not choose to use the lake. The second question is, well, it's a state lake, why should the town pay? That's a great question. And I've asked that question of several people, including people that I associate with in town and government. And the fact of the matter is, the state doesn't have dedicated money funding every year for it. As Bob said, the Lake Association did secure town grant, state grants last year and town grants, but we could look at that as a one-time fund. There's no guarantee of that going forward. Without a continued effort by the town, the lake could end up like a similar sized lake in another town in Mass, Fall River, the South Pawtucket Reservoir. That reservoir has heavy algae blooms every summer. The surface is coated with the slimy green algae, and you can smell the lake from Route 195. It often has warnings regarding no swimming for health causes, and I don't think anybody wants to see that for our lake here. The third one is, well, you got money last year, why are you asking for money again this year? Well, that's a good question too. And if this was a single unique task that had to be completed, we might not be here with this article before you. But every year, new and different non-native invasive weed species appear. And every year, some level of resistance to the weed treatments from the year before happen. And these weeds are intelligent, if you would. So different methods must be used to stay ahead of this constant weed problem. These funds assist those efforts, which are central to controlling these weeds, and they do take a yearly effort. And again, I support this article, and I urge everyone to vote for it. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, we're ready to put Article 9 to a vote. All those in favor 1A, all those opposed 2B. Voting is now open. Time for voting having expired, we'll post the results. 129 yes, 13 no. The article is approved. We have 2 more articles to go. I just ask for your respect for our last 2 articles. Article 10, to see if the town will vote to amend the Town of Webster zoning map, referenced in section 650-13 of the Code of the Town of Webster, to rezone 2 parcels of land from the current zoning designation of industrial to business, District 4, B4, and to be designated within the redevelopment overlay district. Said parcels being located at and known as 21 Pearl Street, shown on the town assessor's map as parcel ID 15-A-5-0, containing approximately 2.18 acres, and 35 Pearl Street, known on the town assessor's map as parcel ID 15-A-1-0, containing approximately 5.1 acres. Both parcels owned now or formerly by 21 Pearl LLC, or take any other action thereon. Article 10 is a citizen's petition, and I would ask that the sponsor please make the motion.
Rita Flagg, 150 and a half North Main Street, Webster, Massachusetts. Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to approve Article 10 as presented in the warrant.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion.
Mainly what's happening is a development company has taken interest in a section of town that has fallen to ruin and has great plans on wanting to put additional housing there, commercial property there, gift shops and coffee shops and farmers markets and more additional items in that area. And in order to do so, unfortunately, we'd have to change the zoning, because right now it's zoned as industrial, and I can't put more living locations in an industrial. So I need the town's help to change that so that we can revitalize that section of town.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Yes, coming up.
Good evening, Mr. Moderator, Brian Pelletier, 3 Cedar Point Road, Webster, Mass. And I'm opposed to this. I've been following it for quite some time. And I know it sounds like just a minor exchange from industrial to business, but the financial impact of our town on what's being proposed there, affordable housing and businesses and so forth, in excess of 160 apartments possibly. And do we really need that at this point? I think some discussions need to be, serious discussions need to be taking place. There has been, but really, not with the input of an awful lot of people who don't know what affordable housing means. Yes, we provide a generous amount of affordable housing in Webster already. Do we need it? I feel as though right now we don't. Okay, and I understand that it was put in the MLS, the multiple listing service, these 2 properties for sale with very generous government grants to entice people. It stayed on there for 5 days and it was taken off. I believe it was 5 days, it was taken down. And there's a reason why it was taken down. I don't know that reason, but I'll tell you right now, when something's withdrawn from the MLS, someone made a boo-boo. That's what it says. And the town really needs to think about another 160 apartments where people don't throw out the income and pay taxes in our town. Okay, it's a transitionary place would take place there, and we would have no real benefit from it. That's how I feel. I'm a town resident for all my life, and that's all I got to say. I'm opposed to it. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Rita Flag, 150 and a half North Main Street, Webster, Mass. First and foremost, all of it would not be affordable housing. The stages are 4 separate buildings that we'd be looking at doing. The first building would have a total of about 58 apartments. When we're at the 95% point in time of completion, I then approach the town and find out if they are in need for affordable housing, to find out what they're in need of. If the town is, I believe, at 10%, is what they ask for in their bylaws, then 10% of my apartments would then become affordable housing. The rest would be considered regular apartments. And there would also be, like I said, commercial property there as well as industrial. I don't know. Someone else was walking up. Let's see.
Good evening. Bob Udon, 21 Morris Street. I oppose to that too, for the simple reason is, people laughed at what happened in Oxford, okay? Archie LaPlante, that land wasn't worth nothing. Look what Ron Dana and Dennis Wallace did to that property. How much money comes in? Do not let that go on North Main Street. It's railroad property. It will bring in top industry into this town, which we desperately need. Now look at what Dana's done. They bought a place on Cudworth Road now. They bought the Leonite building. They bought the Burger King building in Oxford. Now they have railroad siding, which is a multi-million-dollar business right in Oxford. We can do that in Webster. Do not change the zoning on that industrial property. Thank you.
Yep. Any other discussion? Oh, yes, we do need a planning board recommendation, if you don't mind, Ms. Flag. believe Ms. Morgan, who is the town planner, will speak regarding the planning board's recommendation.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. The planning board held a duly posted meeting in accordance with chapter 48, section 5, as is required. They took up the citizen's petition. Petitioner and their lawyer were present. No one else was in attendance. They have recommended to town meeting to pass this article. There is a planning board report. It is on the website if you'd like to see it.
Thank you. Any other discussion? If not, we're ready to put Article 10 to a vote. I will remind voters that this is a zoning article, therefore it requires a 2/3 majority to approve. We'll now put Article 10 to a vote. All those in favor 1A, all those opposed 2B. Voting is now open. Time for voting having expired, we'll now post the results. 41 yes, 99 no. The article is not approved. Article 11, to see if the town will vote to amend the Town of Webster zoning bylaw referencing section 650-25 of the Code of the Town of Webster entitled District 11 Redevelopment Overlay District by 1, revising Part G, and you can read the usage of Part G, and number 2, revising Part K, off-street parking, by inserting a new subpart, which is in your handout, or take any action thereon. The article is a citizen's petition. I would ask for the sponsor to please make the motion.
Rita Flagg, 150.5 North Main Street, Webster, Massachusetts. This was because we were providing our own parking. Mainly it was Mr. Monitor, I moved that the town vote to approve Article 11 as presented in the warrant, but strike Section 2 regarding revisions on Part K concerning off-street parking because it's kind of redundant. We were providing our own, so you didn't need to worry about that.
Thank you. We have a motion. We have a second. We have a motion and a second. Discussion, any discussion on this?
Make a motion to pass over for more information.
We have a motion now to pass over for more information. Is there any discussion on that? I would probably like to get the planning board's report regarding this article, so the residents know what the planning board was proposing.
Again, at the same public hearing as advertised, with the previous article, the planning board voted to approve or recommend passage of Part G relating to uses allowed by special permit, but to not pass Part K off-street parking. Thank you.
Okay. So we currently have a motion to pass over for more information on Article 11. Is there any other discussion? So be a majority vote.
Mainly, this is a section of town, 2 large lots that we're going to revitalize since it looks like a bomb went off over in that section of town. It has been that way for almost a decade at this point. It was investors that have their own money that was coming in to fix this up. Everything around us is a massive amount of industrial zoning, and there are houses literally across the street built from this factory. So to turn around and put in some housing that is desperately needed right now, that was going to take a few years to get the whole entire thing built. We were going to go phase by phase. I'm just trying to make the town better.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, Bob, you're on 21 Moore Street. Are we talking about Anglo Fabrics in the front?
Yep, and
Absolutely
entirely all
not.
the way
Absolutely not. That is railroad property. That is such a value to this town. We don't need apartments, we need industrial to support our town, for people to work. That is a very gold mine. Level it out for now, advertise it across the country, industry.
Sir, I just asked that you please address it to me. That's okay. Yeah, you're doing okay.
I say we keep it the way it is, level it, make it nice for now, advertise it across the country. You will bring industry into the town of Webster, just being railroad property. Now, trust me, I know Ron Dana, I work for him, I haul tankers. Railroad property right now is the top value in industry with railroad. Look at what's happening in the world with trucking. Railroad, they will all come. Like I said, look at Oxford. Go take a ride by what Dana did to Archie's plant. There's property there. It's booming. Do not change the zone, not now. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Right now, we are debating whether to approve a motion to pass over for more information. Hearing no other discussion, are we ready to put this to a vote? Mr. Robert? We are. All those in favor of passing over for more information, 1A. All those opposed, 2B. If this article does not pass, we will be going back to the original motion. Voting is now open. Time for voting having expired, we'll post the results. 92 yes, 45 no. The motion to pass over for more information is approved. Before we adjourn, the town administrator would just like the floor for a brief.
I'll make this quick. I think before we go, it's always good for me to remind people that, this went very efficiently, and yes, Mr. Moderator, a lot of it because of you. But I think you see a lot of towns that go on for hours and hours. I think the work that goes into this is significant, even though it may not look like much on paper. And I want to thank a number of people, obviously our boards and committees, but Assistant Town Administrator Courtney Friedland and our Finance Director, Tim Bell, particularly for their efforts. And respecting the collective time and energy of you means a lot to us. So I hope that you join me in thanking them for their effort and saving you some time tonight. And I'm done. Thank you.
We have a motion to dissolve the town meeting. Do I have a second? Second. All those in favor, aye. Opposed, no. Meeting is adjourned.